Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Ken Hardison, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And today we have the honor and pleasure of having Jason Melton with Regents, who is also an attorney and just an all-around great guy. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Thanks, Ken. You're a great guy, too. Appreciate it.
I try. You know, I know you got a big law firm and you're in our mastermind, but you also got a side business, and that's what I want to talk about today is you're with Regents, which is an offshore staffing company that kind of, I'd say Mexico is probably where you get most of your people, right?
All of them. Yeah.
All of them. Okay.
Yeah. And it really just started, I was patient zero. I needed help. I had basically like a turnstile with certain positions in my firm where I didn't have it before. You know, even though my law firm, which is in Central Florida, I didn't have access to a lot of college educated folks. To call it a bedroom community is even a little helpful because there's a lot of retirees there, frankly. So even with the population being what it was, only a section of it was even, looking for work. So I always had difficulty, but we found a way. And then probably, 17, 18, 19, we started seeing the same positions being refilled and we having to retrain and refilled. And it just felt like there had to be a better way. And I reached out to a friend of mine who knew my now business partner in Mexico, had worked with some very large corporations, filling like thousands of jobs at a time. And I talked to him about my challenges. He said something really interesting in our very first phone call when I asked him, he asked me what I wanted to get. I was like, specifically, I'm looking for paralegals and case managers. And I said, can you help me find those? And he asked me, why would you want to hire paralegals and case managers? And I was thinking, that's a strange question because that's the job I wanted to fill. But his point was, if you could hire other people who are more talented, why don't you do that? And so it was from there that we sort of embarked on this journey of overhiring, where for paralegal and legal assistant positions, we're hiring lawyers. And I would never recommend that you not do that, because not only are you avoiding more talented people to fill those roles, but you're also denying yourself the unknown. And that is where that person who's overqualified maybe reimagines the role for you, figures out better and new ways to do things. Maybe they happen to understand AI really well, and they want to figure out a way to do things faster. I mean, time on desk is so important for us as lawyers. And when you have really smart and creative people who come up and you give them the space to work creatively, to come up with different ways to do their job, or at least have an open line so they can make suggestions. These are really, really these can be very impactful employees, not just people to fill roles and do data entry. Not that work isn't important too, but that's the idea. And so you can hire scientists, you can hire doctors, you could hire surgeons. I always tell a great story. I helped a lawyer in Connecticut hire an oral surgeon. This woman was doing surgeries on people's mouths, right? And she stopped doing that to basically be intake for him. And she loved working from home. She was tired of the way the Mexican medical system worked and how she was compensated. This was a great job. She's still there as far as I know. And, there are lots of opportunities for things that are hard for Americans to get our head around, why somebody would want to do one thing over another, but not all societies compensate employment the same way we do. And so these assumptions can be dangerous. They can sort of block you out from thinking of more clever ways to do things. And so we created this company after I did it successfully for a few years. And as the story goes, as you know, I did it in secret for a couple of years. I didn't even tell my mastermind friends or you. I was concerned it might blow up in my face, or that maybe there was something, untoward about it, but it was awesome. And then we created a company, and I do my very, very best to make sure that all the clients are handled just like I was when I was patient zero. And so we do things like, I don't ask anybody to give us any money before anyone is hired. You can interview people without paying us any money. I do things like this, things that I really appreciated as a customer. And so I try really hard to continue that with everybody. And it's been great. It's been a lot of fun. I've been able to expand my network of friends around the country, picked up a few things from some friends, but mostly just helping people and networking. And it's such a joy, being in your mastermind, Ken, just opened up, avenues for my brain to talk, just the way we talk to each other and the methods of sharing. This has been a way to do that more. And I love it. And it's really enjoyable.
So you're telling me you can hire a lawyer to do paralegals work, and I guess you can do it cheaper than what you have to pay a paralegal in the United States.
Of course. I mean, this is sort of the great myth about offshore, nearshore employment, is that one, that you can't hire people who are more talented than what you get in the United States. That's a myth that you can't. Absolutely can. You can hire people in other countries who are more talented than the people in your law firm or that you would normally interview for those roles. And the easiest way to prove that is that you can simply overhire. You hire people who have greater capability than you could ever afford, like a 7-year lawyer in Mexico versus someone who maybe went to paralegal school for a semester. You might consider for a case manager position or a legal assistant position. And when you hire people who are more capable than that, it doesn't mean that on day one they show up just knocking out all the work. It means that these people are super trainable because they're smart, they're educated. Somebody smarter than me once said they learned how to learn. And that's what college is about, right? So when you get someone who's gone through law school, they've taken the being a lawyer as a profession very seriously, and they've gone and they've done other work. These are people who have learned how to learn. They've trained themselves to do all sorts of things. And so you can hire scientists, teachers, surgeons, doctors, lawyers, whatever, to do these jobs. And it just creates a higher ceiling for future work. But
Yeah.
It's an incredible atmosphere when you can make your law firm better and save money and really improve someone's life in another country. And I love that part of what we do, that we pay the folks well. We probably pay about 25 to 30% over market value. It's one of the reasons why we have good folks. And it's remarkable what you can see those folks, what those jobs mean to them and mean to their homes. It's very cool.
So I see a lot of lawyers say, well, I just, it's too much headaches, you got to train them all this. And I don't know how I can, access all this data, HIPAA laws and all that stuff. What do you say to people like that?
Well, I mean, usually these are people who have drifted into the bottomless pit of wage war, and $5 an hour, no $4 an hour, no $3 an hour. You will always have a problem when you are swimming in those waters. Not only are those people difficult to rely upon, you're not paying them enough for them to rely on you. When you pay someone $5 an hour, they can get 20% more, 20, just by finding someone to pay them $1 more, right? It's not hard. And so people leave jobs because of the salaries. They leave jobs because of the environment. And then what happens is you'll exhaust yourself. You cannot continue to train people over and over and over again for these positions. And you're setting yourself up for failure because you hired them at such a low rate. They were never going to be available for several years anyway. And that's what you want. You want to hire people that you train once, and then the next time you train them, it's about new stuff, not the same old stuff. And you can do that with better qualified people.
So what do lawyers go for in Mexico? What can I get a lawyer for in Mexico? Get somebody smart.
With us, the younger lawyers go for $2,900 a month. The older ones go for about $3,500 a month. Sometimes we find people who are exceptionally experienced. They might want more, in which case we'll just negotiate the rate with you guys, with the client. The interesting thing is the non-lawyers only go for a couple $100 less per month. This is sort of like the interesting part about this industry is you see people commonly being sold clerks to work in their firm to do legal assistant positions. And those companies they worked with, they could have gotten them lawyers have they spent the time to go out and get the lawyers, and they didn't want to spend a few $100 more a month on the lawyer. And so it's very interesting.
So what do you think the key is to onboard and getting somebody on, make sure they're properly trained, and then holding them accountable because they're so far away? What are some tips?
I think the first thing is to appreciate the fact that these are human beings. These are not computers, and you can't just hit play. You have to actually train them, spend time with them. And then a word that you use that I've now adopted, which is to over communicate. When these people are working remotely, you have to spend more time with them than you would at your own firm because they don't have the benefit of the water cooler conversation. They don't have the benefit of bumping into people in a parking lot, or they don't have the benefit of eavesdropping other people talking to supervisors about things they're working on, right? Or a lot of times just even talking together. My computer's about to go out. Hold on one second. I'm going to plug it in. And so because of that distance, over communication is really, really, really important. It's more important than it is just in your law firm. And so I think you have a lot of people who are so drawn to the economics of hiring offshore that they don't consider that they still have a role to play in the development of these people. It's not just like point and click type of activity, right? So I find like usually the offices that are really well organized and have the capability to train someone, but also to be there when that person raises their hand and says, hey, I have a question. Somebody's going to respond to it. They're not going to write an email in response 3 days later while the guy's just sitting there in the closet trying to figure out how to do something, right? And so I see a lot of problems with sort of the solo lawyer with like maybe one person answering the phone. Those people struggle with an offshore person because they have to be super, super organized because that lawyer still has to practice law. You know, that's the horse in the firm. They still got to run. They don't have time to do other things. So usually the firms with a couple lawyers and a couple staff, 3, 4, 5 staff, those are like the sweet spot. I find for offshore firms because they can really lean into someone, train them, make them part of their culture, and they have the time and the bandwidth to train them and supervise them.
I think it's onboarding is most firms on onboarding just throw people in and say sink or swim or just watch this person, and
correct.
That's not the way to do it. I mean,
yeah, so I over onboard like big time. My legal assistants and my intake people, I usually don't let them start handling work for 3.5, 4 weeks. But I've also had my people for years. And I'm like, if considering how long I've had my people, why wouldn't everybody always train this way? Because I have clients sometimes they train them one day, and then they get upset when they don't feel like they're working as fast as some other people should be. I'm like, you spent one day training them. Like, did you even spend any time talking to them about where your office is? What goes on culturally in your neighborhood, what's on people's minds. Like all this stuff is relevant, as you know, when you practice law, people's discovery responses, the way they interact with staff. It's all about community and all what's going on. So there's so much for people to learn to be involved, to really get engaged with an office from a culture level before you even get into the legal. So I lay out I have some ebooks that are for free on our website at regentsrs.com. And we talk about, there's 3 books, one for interviewing and hiring, one for management, but then there's a whole book just on onboarding. And I go through like a 2-week protocol on how to train them. It's an outline, but if you don't know where to start, it's a great place to start. Just look at it and then kind of fill in your blanks on what you want to do. But I think it's very, very important that you spend a significant amount of time getting these people acclimated to where you are, where you practice, and where your clients live. What's important to them, what goes on in their culture, who the governor is, who the big football team is, what are the big local holidays. This stuff is going to show up in your discovery. It's going to show up in your phone calls. If you want these people to be front-facing with clients, you need to give them an appreciation of who these clients are.
And do you once you get them onboarded, like do you do like daily huddles or a huddle 2 or 3 times a week with them, or some kind of Zoom meetings, or what? How do you handle that?
Yeah, so at my firm, we do a huddle like once a month. We've gone back and forth on huddles, but I have to tell you, I've been doing some consulting with another law firm lately, and they do a huddle every single morning. And I got to tell you, it's fantastic. It's really, really good. Even on the worst mornings when there's not much to talk about and people are in kind of a groggy mood, I still think it's a wonderful way to start the day.
Yeah.
It still gives people the opportunity in the forum to say something if they want to say something. I think it makes people feel more accountable. And I think when good things happen, it's so great to provide an opportunity to say that those good things just happen and reminding people that, hey, your neighbors and your people in your office are doing great work. So, and that's definitely a great place for a remote worker to get involved in your culture. Also, like if you have lunch and learns, you have even lunch like pizza parties, invite them. Send some pizza to the office in Mexico or wherever they are and put them on Zoom and let them hang out with you. If you have a lunch and learn, my goodness, let them learn too. Why don't you want them to learn? It was so important for the rest of your staff. Why wouldn't you want them to learn too? And I see that all the time. People don't think about including the remote staff member when they have like a lunch and learn, which to me sounds crazy. They probably want to learn more than others.
It's at Pilma, we got 3 offshores, and we do what everybody do. We used to do it every day. I think we do it 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then on Thursdays we have what we call a water cooler hour for 30 minutes, right? Where people just get on and talk about what's going on in their life and share, personal stuff, like, concerts they went to.
My sister had a baby. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's
got married. Yeah.
Yeah, and a really good example of that was at the conference. I can't remember her name. It was Nazia. Like Nazia is there. She's from Pakistan, and she was so engaged and so interested in everyone's welfare and everyone she worked with. She was just taking in every drop of every day, right? And I guarantee you, had you never had those huddles, had you never had those sharing moments on Zoom the way you've done, it wouldn't have meant the same to her to come, be with people in person. And like that's why her work is so good too, because she really wants to do a great job for you guys, right?
Yeah. She got we had the summit over a week ago.
Yeah.
She got stuck, man, because of that. She could not get back into Pakistan because of the war.
Yeah. But did she get stuck in Rome, or did she get stuck
got stuck in Denver, and we flew her out here, and she spent the 3 or 4 days with Gracie, our COO.
Oh, that's great.
And she got on a plane this morning, though. I think once they got the ceasefire, the airlines would not go in there because they were fighting,
Correct. Yeah.
That was wild.
So she got some extra time.
Yeah.
That's great. I saw her post on LinkedIn, and I'm like, that's culture right there, man. That's inclusivity culture. And I guess, if you guys can't do it, then we probably all have problems.
Yeah.
You're not going to do it right.
Yeah. Do you believe in, using this software where you kind of monitor people's keyboard strokes or what websites they're on?
It's interesting. I think on its face, I think it's great. You want an extra piece of data to make you feel comfortable about what's going on, that's fine. But so much of this stuff is really like in the human psyche. People who are already uncomfortable, already doubters, that's what all this stuff is for. Because the irony is that if you were over communicating, as we talked about, and you were seeing them in the morning huddle, and you were reviewing their work during the afternoon, and you were talking about tomorrow morning, late in the afternoon, like what we're going to be doing tomorrow, right? When during the day did you need that software to do anything?
Yeah.
You spent most of the day with them anyway, right?
I know some firms won't do it because they feel like it violates the trust.
Well, sure. But my point is, like, you need to do these things. But I mean, let's think about what we just talked about. If you're including people in all these different events and you're working with people, you're reviewing the work, you're tasking out the work. I mean, is the work getting done? Are you happy with the work? Are you happy with the communication about the work? Right? If these things are occurring, maybe it doesn't matter. On the other hand, the ethics of it, I'm totally fine with it. I mean, if that's what you want to do, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's a good idea to tell the people that you're doing it. I can't tell you that everyone does that, which I always thought was strange, because I would want to know if somebody was sort of spying on me, as it were. But it's funny you bring that up. There's a funny story. When I first started as a lawyer, I had another lawyer spying on me by direction of our joint supervisor. And I found out about it like months later. And I have to tell you, like, I rubbed me wrong for a long time that guy was hanging out with me under false pretense. And people don't like it. I didn't like it.
Yeah, nobody likes that. So these ebooks you got one on interview and one on management. Yes, interview and hiring, management.
Yeah, and one on onboarding. So it's interview and hiring, onboarding.
So and people can get these. They don't have to do business with you. They can get these free, right?
they don't have to give me any money. They don't have to do business with us. Like if they want to do it on their own, I would tell them, read these books. It'll help you a lot in your journey. Interesting on that topic. So sometimes some of our clients will transition these staff people to full-time employees of their firm. I think the legal word is conversion. And a lot of those firms that have done that, they still come back to us to find new people, because even though maybe they figured out how to pay them and maybe how to manage them because they've worked with them for a couple of years, they feel like they can trust them, right? They still need new people, and so they'll come back to us because of our recruiting abilities to hire new people. And I'm fine with that. I don't have a problem with that at all. I don't think it's a weird thing for to go through different phases of hiring. But there are challenges. Mexico, I think healthcare is a challenge. We offer healthcare for our folks, which is not as normal as you would think. The taxation and different things involved in Mexico, involving holidays and vacations and things like that, are not easy. And then there's some labor laws that are a little unusual and unique. So there's lots of reasons to go with an agency versus doing it yourself. But if you wanted to, I still think these books would be valuable to you. And we're still not big enough that people can't call me and try to come up with an idea that I hadn't thought of to help them. I'm open to that. But we've had so much fun helping so many Pillman members and other lawyers. It's been great.
Yeah, well, I think it's I remember during and after COVID, had the Great Resignation, and that was the biggest problem for everybody, was finding help. I mean, nobody wanted.
Well, and after walking through the streets of downtown Denver every morning, that place is a ghost town. There was nobody walking to work. Those folks did not come back. I don't, it's not even a political conversation anymore, but there's a lot of folks that are not interested in coming back to the office. And if they don't get a remote job from this company, they're going to find one in another company. And it did not leave. It was not a temporary thing. I think less people are working remote now than they were, 4 years ago, but it's part of the landscape now. People are doing hybrid. And then some people are just committed to working remote, period. They're just not going back in again, sitting in the traffic. And I understand.
Yeah. It's so funny because Pima, we were remote in 2018 by my choice, because of the labor pool in Myrtle Beach was so sort of like what you have to deal with. It's tourists and retirees and or either partiers.
Yeah.
Nobody really, it's different than when I lived in Raleigh, Durham area in North Carolina. It was so much easier.
Oh my gosh. Think about all this beautiful. Yeah. You have all those wonderfully smart people coming out of those colleges. Like, come on.
Yeah. It was easy to find people, but so enlarged the pool of what I could go for. I got people now working in Pakistan, and then just hired a girl from Ohio, your state where you live. So we got them all over. I mean, Wyoming, Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it's becoming more normalized in our economy for sure. I mean, not everybody works the way you and I work, but so when you have that's going on, culture becomes a big issue. And one of the things that I loved about Mexico is that this generation of younger people in Mexico is still pretty traditional, still interested in careers. They're still interested in professions and long pursuits. They're not worried about YOLO and quitting jobs for vacations and experiences. I mean, we still have a real problem in this country. And while it's true you can hire people remotely in this country, they tend to skew older. These younger folks, while they might like remote, they may not like remote with you for too long, because they skip around. It's just a different, they grew up during different times. I get it. You had recessions and wars and terrorism, and made people think that, the short way might be the better way. But in Mexico, it's a totally different world. It's like hiring in the 1990s. And people, they really want a job that's really important to them, their career. And it's been wonderful to work with those folks.
If you had to pick 2 or 3 biggest mistakes you see lawyers making hiring offshore, what would it be?
First one is price. To me, it's like you're shopping for cheeseburgers and all of them are going to be cheaper than the steak place that you were going to go in the alternative, and you still are focused on price. I'm like, what's the difference? If the burger was 12 or 19, it's still so much cheaper than 80. So why don't you get the best of the alternatives, because you've already saved so much money. So I think reliance on price is a big mistake. Second is a total lack of training when you onboard somebody, like we talked about. And it's not even like not enough training. I'm talking about total lack of training. What you talked about and described, day one, they're just being tasked things. This is outrageous. If you took on a job for a Portuguese law firm and they didn't train you when you showed up, you'd be like, what in the world is going on here? This is nuts. These people didn't even train me. So, a lot of this is like, just treat humans like humans. If you would have liked to have been trained, then so would they. And then I'd say the last mistake is probably, it's on the same lines as treating humans as humans, is remembering that these are humans. These are not computers, and you cannot just press play, and you need to involve them in your culture. You need to involve them with your people. They are a part of your staff. You should treat them like that. And if you think for 1 second anything that you would do with them that you wouldn't do with the staff in America, then don't do it. What they get paid and the way you treat them are not the same thing.
Parting words of wisdom, and then how can the people get up with you or your company, Jason?
Well, parting words of wisdom is keep an open mind, and just understand that, today's reality is going to be last month's reality. And at the speed of everything else that we're dealing with these days, I was just having a conversation yesterday with a friend of mine. We were talking about Google organic rankings. And, I remember, 8 years ago, that seemed like the zenith of all zenith points. Where were you organically on SEO with Google? Not only are organic rankings less important these days because of LSAs and pay-per-clicks, right? But we're getting to the point very soon where Google is not going to matter as much as an entity, where the searching on AI is going to be more critical than the searching on Google. And, it's like living in Texas. They say, if you like the weather, just wait 20 minutes and see if you like the weather then, things change, so that would be the only piece of advice. But if you want to get a hold of us, the website is regentsrs.com for Regents Remote Services. And you can get a hold of me there. You can send an email, info@regentsrs.com. If you don't know how to get a hold of me and can't remember what I just said, if you reach out to almost any lawyer at PILMA, they probably know a way to get a message to me. I'm happy to talk to anybody, but it's this is my favorite organization.
Thank you. We'll have it in the notes.
Very good.
You can pull it up.
Thanks for having me on, Ken. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.